Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to something different. This is a sort of carry-on from the previous two D&D videos that I've done. It's unscripted because there's a lot of stuff. Like, this is all handwritten notes that I've done for this sort of pre-written, it's not, well, I suppose it is pre-written because I made it, but it's an adventure that I made for a sort of first level party that's never sort of experienced D&D before. It's nice, it's simple, there's nothing overly complicated about it, and most importantly, everything that you're going to be able to have access to or need access to is all available for free on D&D Beyond, which is this here. D&D Beyond is a free website that has all of the D&D materials on it. If I was to go here and go into sources, you can attain all of the sources that Wizards of the Coast and everyone else who has contributed to it has put out. So there's Acquisitions Incorporated, there's some stuff from Critical Role here, there's some Rick and Morty content here. It's all available for you to purchase after the fact, but you don't need to. There is basic rules, which are this here, which gives you a lot of stuff for free that you don't need to pay for, and this is important because it gives you a finite amount of races to choose from, a finite amount of class and sub-race things to choose from, a finite amount of spells, and for this adventure, a finite amount of monsters. And those, specifically two monsters that we're going to be using in this encounter is the Kobold and the Brass Dragon Wormling, which is like a newborn Brass Dragon, because they are CR1. And it makes for a nice little end boss for a first little one-shot for a game like this, because when people think D&D, they think Dungeons and Dragons, and so what better way to get someone into the game than show them a nice brass dragon. I mean, that's like an adult one, but still. This adventure revolves around the brass dragon and sort of rumours of it. And what we're going to do is I'm going to sort of talk you through this adventure that I've pre-written. A couple of things to note is I've left out descriptions of places, mostly. There's a couple of descriptions here and there, but for the most part, if you want to add, say, flavor text, then that's something that you're going to have to add in after the fact, because it just saves a lot of time, and it also allows you to flavor this adventure however you want. So say if I am putting in all of my own flavor and I decide that this town in the desert is actually a city that's dedicated to trade goods and trading rare materials found in the desert for stuff, whereas someone else may decide that, nah, this is just a town of wanderers who wander through the desert but want a central hub. You know, you can flavor these things as you see fit, and more towards your tastes. And along with the removal of a lot of the descriptions, there's a lot of the difficulty checks for the dice. You can ask for skill checks on whatever you deem appropriate. So I'm not going to sort of, if your party has decided to try to talk to one of the town guards and get some information that way, you may decide that you want to throw in a persuasion check there, or if you don't have a lot of time, just skip over a persuasion check and just keep going. So you throw in skill checks where you deem necessary. You are the DM, after all. Say one person might decide that there's a guard who is just, he's, being a nice little helpful town guard and will give information freely, compared to another DM who might decide that there's a guard who is sort of fed up and just wants to finish his shift already and is being sort of obstinate. So depending on how well they've rolled an investigation check to try and find a guard, they may do. It's up to you. And lastly, this adventure was designed to be short, but also to be able to be run for players of any age. So, because I know there's the quarantine going on at the minute, you may be trapped at home, and maybe you you want to try playing D&D with the rest of the family. It's fine, but if there's little kids, then you might not want maybe so much violence in it. And you can go through this adventure completely just by talking, because brass dragons are talkers. They absolutely love talking. It's one of their main things that they do. They are just talkers. They will talk someone's ear off and then the rest of their body off if they don't stop them. So, without further ado, let's get into the adventure, shall we? To start off this adventure, the party is travelling down a desert path towards a city where a festival is set to happen in a few days, and they've arranged to stay in the Sandy Bucket Inn. They arrive to find that it's closed. So the reason that it's sort of predetermined, it's a good way to get the party together. They are already grouped up. They know that they're going to be going to this place and this is where they're going to be staying in preparation for this festival. It can be a festival of whatever you want. The important part is they're going to a place for an event and they've already arranged that they're staying at an inn. But when they get to the inn, this Sandy Bucket Inn, they find that it's closed. And after asking around, they discover that local villagers over the past few nights have been kidnapped. The villagers want to go after what's been chasing and capturing the villagers, but they fear being taken themselves. And the town guards, they can't go after these sort of kidnappers because there is this festival being set up and it requires all of the town guards to be there to sort of keep order as there's lots of new people coming into town. But one of the guards did manage to catch, as dawn was coming up, they did manage to spot someone being, some tracks leading off away into the desert. As they are talking to everyone, everyone keeps repeatedly noting about the fact that, oh, you look ready for a fight. I'm sure you could go after these brigands, these vandals, these kidnappers, and you could probably you're well armed. You could take care of these kidnappers, I'm sure. And so everyone's sort of like pushing them more towards like, hey, you can help us, And if it gets to a point where sort of the player's like, yeah, but I don't want to, then the guards would sort of incentivize, yeah, we can pay you money, we can give you a reward if you go out and save these people because we have to maintain law and order in this city, but you are, you can save these people and we'll reward you. So heading out, there is a set of sort of more obvious tracks. The tracks being sort of one main deep groove in the sand that looks like a person has been sort of dragged through the sand, and then footsteps either side. This is sort of the town guard, not the town guard, the innkeeper being dragged away from the inn by kobolds during the night. And after about sort of 2.5 hours of journeying, you could ask the players here for like survival checks if they want to, if you want to make it a bit more difficult for them. But for something like this, I'd say that the tracks are obvious and it wouldn't be a difficult check. And you risk, if they fail the check, then them just being lost, which for a short adventure you don't really want. The party, after about 2.5 hours, see just off in the distance, cresting over a hill, a humanoid being dragged by a couple of kobolds. Yeah, I mean, you can feel free to. They sort of look like this, 2.5 feet tall, little lizard men. The party can choose to, fight with the kobolds. If they wish to, they're not talking, they're just going to run straight up to them and immediately engage in sort of combat. That's entirely fine, they can do that. As soon as one of the sort of all of them get injured, or one of them falls unconscious, they are going to just drop the innkeeper and flee. They're going to drag, their friend that's dropped out, and they're just going to drop the innkeeper and flee. If they choose to fight, that is. The innkeeper looks weak from sort of constantly struggling to try and get away from the kobolds, and he'll ask the party to escort him back to town. Players instead strike up a conversation with the kobolds. They can uncover that they are... I can feel the sneeze. One important thing to note is that because it's now day, and the kobolds are dragging this town keep through the desert, they are subject to that sunlight sensitivity, which is a nice way of sort of introducing disadvantage and an advantage on your players. Especially if they're new players and it's something that they don't quite understand, and it's something that you're going to have to sort of introduce to them. This is a good way of sort of mentioning it in a way where it's not going to affect them negatively, and they're going to understand that, oh, enemies can be put in disadvantaged positions, or because of their pack tactics, they can get advantage. So these are good sort of introductory enemies for your players to go up against, because it teaches them about advantage and disadvantage. If they manage to strike up a conversation with the kobolds, they can uncover that they are taking people to appease their god. Kobolds tend to revere dragons as sort of demigods and worship them in a similar sort of way. Which they can uncover that it's not too far, the dragon's den is not too far away from here. And if they threaten the kobolds, they will sort of grovel and beg and cower because they're in bright daylight and they are very weak and they don't want to be killed. They give up. They will willingly give up as much information about the dragon's den as their small little brains will allow. They're not very smart. They're not, stupid, but they're not incredibly intelligent. The bartender asks the party to guide him back to town, and if they accept, the party will be regarded as heroes for saving this villager. Even if it's just one, they've gone out of their way to save this person. They didn't have to, but they did. The innkeeper will offer them free night stay at the inn, and also go down under his bar and uncover 2 healing potions covered in dust. They've clearly not been touched in a very, very long time, but 2 healing potions coated in dust. The town guard approaches them, asking, what do they manage to find? If they kill the kobolds or manage to get them to run away before they uncover about the dragon's den, the innkeeper will have heard them talking about it, just yammering on as he was struggling, so the innkeeper can butt in. Their lair is a dragon's den, and they were taking me there. So the town guards ask the party to go back to that dragon's den, follow the tracks further, and see if they can uncover the rest of the people that have been taken. And if they can manage to do this, they'll reward the party with sort of 100 gold per person that they manage to bring back. However, if the party immediately decides to chase after the kobolds, the innkeeper, will ask for the escort back to town. But if they insist on going after the kobolds, he'll stop them and say, their god is a dragon, from the way that they were talking about it, so if you insist on going after this dragon, then at least take some of these, and he will then produce the 2 healing potions that he wouldn't get to give them back at the town hall. Because when it comes to DMing and there are important things that you want your players to have, like some healing potions, just have them wherever it's needed. So, for instance, if this was a more open adventure, and the party were just adventuring and immediately went off into the desert, but found the cave, they might just straight up come across these town guards, these kobolds dragging this innkeeper across the sand, before they even make it to the city, the town. And when he asks, what's happened, they just reveal the information that way. So it doesn't have to be A to B to C. It can be D back to A over to F. But the party doesn't know that there was a set order. They just know that this thing happened. And that's one of the best things about DMing. If something needs to happen, just have it happen. If a town guard needed to talk to a party member, instead make that town guard a civilian that was on their way back from somewhere else, and they just managed to find out this information. There are plenty of ways that you can flavor this information in a way that your players won't realize, but you'll feel a bit more smart for, haha, you know this information, but you weren't going to because you did something stupid. Anyway, After the party tracks down these kobolds, that you come across the entrance to the Dragon's Den. Now, the Dragon's Den is going to have... I've made a thing for this. So this is a sort of... a rough idea as to sort of the Dragon's Den. So the party will come into the Dragon's Den. It's going to be a small hovel because it's only a young dragon. There's not going to be... It's not going to have an established system or an established huge horde like an older dragon would. It's only a wormling. The party make their way into the Dragon's Den. If they have spoken to the kobolds beforehand, they'll know about this trap here. There's a little 10-foot by 10-foot pitfall trap that they can, climb out of. There's only 2.5-foot kobolds digging, but maybe it's 5-6 feet deep, and with a bit of help they can drag themselves out of it. Hidden, maybe with a passive perception of 13, 14, they'd be able to see it beforehand, or with a perception check of the same. If they spoke to the kobolds, they'd know about it because the kobolds would warn them.
There's a trap as soon as you walk into the door. Be careful, sidestep as soon as you get past the tunnel.
That sort of thing. Get past the pit trap, they'll come to a couple of other kobolds who, they'll try to sort of defend. But again, as soon as they get injured, they don't want to die. They're intelligent enough to not fight to the death. And as soon as they start getting injured, they will run down and alert this brass dragon. Now, one thing that I had thought about is, as soon as they were getting close to the dragon's entrance, they can just hear this constant murmuring coming out from the dragon's den, and as they may be fighting, they can just hear this.
And so, back in 2 years ago, I found this ancient scroll and I had read through it, and the texture on it.
Because brass dragons love to speak, they literally trap people just so that they can speak to them. Now, if the party try and fight the dragon's going to try and fight back. It's got, it's pretty hardy enough, but it's also got fire breath or sleep breath. So if the party are talking to it, you can have the dragon just sort of and exhale this sort of sleep breath, depending on how the conversation is going. It's getting a bit hostile, and the dragon's like, well, I'll just put them to sleep, and then I'll put them in the cage with the others so that when they wake up they can listen to my wonderful tales. Whereas if they start fighting, then the dragon's gonna, do this fire breath, and there's a reason why you have the healing potions there. A couple of ways that the party could sort of deal with this situation, at least the way that I've sort of thought of. One of the ways that the party could deal with this is literally just by talking. So say this is why a sort of party of younger kids, or say if there's a couple of younger kids in the party that you don't want to, yes, I cut off the dragon's head and the blood gushes all over the floor. And if you want to make it more conversation based, you can do that. You can have it so that the dragon will accept sort of terms when it comes to bartering with these people. And a simple way around it would be, instead of stealing these people away, how about, we just have people whose job it is to come and chat with you. And then every couple of days, just, every day, this different person cycles and they take shifts. They have night shifts. That is a way to sort of peacefully resolve this combat. Obviously, players being players, they'll have their own ideas, but that's an example of a way that they could go around it. Alternatively, they could just go in, guns blazing, and kill everything that moves, and then free the villagers. It's entirely up to the players at that point. The point of the story is that your players can barter with this dragon and sort of resolve the conflict non-violently if the party can try and come up with a solution that involves the dragon still being able to talk to people, and also the villagers not being trapped. That way it's a win-win for all. And, if you want to then take it from here, dragon could be an ally to your party. And as this dragon gets bigger and its den grows bigger, the kobolds could be sort of friendly to the town. Normally, these kobolds are sort of evil creatures, but if they are following a dragon, this demigod, this sort of godly figure that they see, and this is telling them, you're not allowed to hurt this village, they're going to follow along with that. It's taken me, 20 minutes to explain? but I guarantee when it comes to playing through it, this can easily last 2-3 hours of gameplay, and that is enough, I think, for our first session. Again, I haven't played this, I haven't tested it, which is why there's not a lot of sort of difficulty checks or descriptions in there. If you want to add descriptions about how the dragon's cave is illuminated by several holes in the ceiling where the light comes through, the light shines through and illuminates the rest of the room. Skittering kobolds chatter away in the back of the room. You can describe this stuff, but I didn't throw it in because, you know, you can add your own flavour to these things. And that's where I'm going to leave this. This is the adventure. You get to the point, they finish the dragon, and then they take the villagers back to town and are regarded as, yay, heroes, saviours. And then they are sort of maybe praised in the festival to come, or whatever. But that's up to you. This is just an idea of sort of where you can go and where you can find free resources. This was all done using, free resources. Maybe this wasn't. This was on a thing on Steam, which is about £10, and it's good for sort of visualizing stuff. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got some value out of this. And if you do end up running this, tell me how it goes. I want to see, because I've not run it yet, so I don't know how it's going to work out. There's a lot of improv, but that's 90% of DMing in my experience. You prep a load, and the party goes elsewhere. So, improv away it is. Tell me how it goes. And if you like this video, don't forget to like it. If you want to see more stuff just like this, tell me in the comments below, and I will maybe come up with a few other ideas. Next video, I am going to come up with the way to show you to play D&D online through Discord for free. Minis, I say minis, sort of icons that you can move around with a nice representation, dice rolling and the rest, for free. Absolutely for free. Limited, and maybe not necessarily great looking, but you're playing D&D online with friends for free, and that's going to be the next video. So, if you want to see that, don't forget to subscribe. And until next time, did you know I'm English? Cheerio.